Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for returning back to join the Safe Sister Circle's Circle Chats. I am your host, Dion Dillard, and it is with my greatest pleasure that I will be interviewing Reverend Dr. Carter. Reverend Dr. Selena D. Carter is a pillar of her community. Dr. Carter graduated with a Bachelor of Arts from Somerset Christian College, a Master of Divinity from Drew Theological Seminary, and received a Doctor of Ministry from New Brunswick Theological Seminary in New Jersey. As a native of Newark, Dr. Carter's experiences can be compared to those of residents of Washington, D.C.'s Ward 7 and 8. Dr. Carter is passionate about empowering others to be their most authentic selves. She feeds that very energy into adolescent girls and women through educational seminars, workshops, conferences, and educational programs as the founder and executive director of Spirit of Excellence Leadership Guidance Incorporated. As a survivor of domestic violence, Dr. Carter's purpose is to help other adolescent girls and women establish healthy relationships. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. Carter's story today. So hello, Dr. Carter, and welcome.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for having me here on today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, as you are aware, the Safe Sisters Circle is an organization that supports Black women survivors of domestic violence. And as a nonprofit that provides free cultural, specific, holistic, and trauma-based services to Black women survivors, I wanted to start off this session today with understanding how you may be connected with the Safe Sisters Circle.
Sure, I became connected with the Safe Sisters Circle when Tamaya Mosley attended a workshop I facilitated for the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence this past October. And she reached out to me and asked, could I come and be a part of the Safe Sisters Circle chat? And we connected that way.
Well, that's awesome. I know that the world is definitely small, but again, we are greatly inspired by your story, and I am super excited to be interviewing you today. So could you share more about your survivorship story?
Sure, I'll share about my story. My issue or domestic violence situation occurred when I was in my early teens. I was 15, um, became a teen mom at 16, and I met and married my high school sweetheart. And our relationship, we had, what appeared to be a very loving relationship, very attentive person, where you're going, what you're doing, things that we take for granted when you starting a relationship that eventually for me turned into subtle ways to control me. Who are you speaking with? What clothes are you wearing? And eventually the emotional and psychological abuse became physical. And the physical abuse was very traumatic. And it was something that I didn't know about and had never experienced in my own home. I came from a two-parent home. My parents had a loving relationship. I was not privy to a negative relationship or a relationship that was not loving. So when I started experiencing these issues, I didn't know what to do. I thought, well, maybe let me just try something else to make sure it turns into a loving relationship, while all along I was in an abusive relationship.
Thank you so much for sharing that experience. It definitely sounds like it was emotional. But with speaking with you, I feel like you have this fighter spirit and mentality. And, during your introduction, I mentioned you're founder and executive director of your own organization. So would you be able to share what inspired you to create Spirit of Excellence?
Sure. So, as you stated early, I grew up in Newark, born, raised in Newark, New Jersey. And in New Jersey, people frown down on Newark. And as a result of that, a teen mom and being in an abusive relationship, I was able to start Spirit of Excellence to help other teen moms and women um, create a healthy environment, that and the environment conducive of them putting the work in and creating a healthy um, livelihood from the inside out, because so many young girls and women did not have the opportunities that I had from, like, my parents to help me out, and so many depended on outside sources for love and compassion and to help them to do better. And and many just um, was a result or a product of their environment. So, I started SOE to help see that there is an other and you can do better, and there is greater on the other side of your demographics. So that's how SOE derived.
And it actually sounds like your mission is very closely aligned to the Safe Sister Circle's mission itself. The organization applies women of color's racial and gender response, like a responsive lens, to directly guide the decisions of the organization, its programs, the outreach. And so, as you were sharing in your the reason why you derived the organization Spirit of Excellence, have you noticed any differences or similarities between what you experience and what younger women are experiencing now within relationships?
Yes. So, many of the similarities, the from the young ladies that I deal with, is role model. Like, that was missing for me, a role model. Also mentorship, which is just so key in helping to develop outside of your environment. Because when, day to day, when you see poverty, when you see nobody around you um, is able to get past that next or go to that next level because of their environment. That was missing for me. And just being able to define personal boundaries for yourself.
I can only imagine how inspired and thankful these young ladies are for your mentorship, your leadership, and you sharing your experiences with them to feed into their futures. Kind of speaking to the same notion, but because you are an ordained minister, are there any misconceptions surrounding domestic violence that you may have experienced or seen within the church itself?
Yes. So when I was going through my domestic violence situation, I was in the church, and my spiritual leader at that time, when I went to my spiritual leader, it was not that they did not want to help me. It's just they didn't have the tools and the knowledge to help me. And that has been a barrier in itself, connecting the church with resources, because the church practices the sanctity of marriage and keeping relationships together, whereas your social service organizations are looking at the safety. So just being able to come together with the two, that we want a victim or survivor to be able to heal and to be able to practice their faith while going through as a part of the healing, but also receiving the services that could help them in those areas.
So thank you so much for sharing that information, and your perspective on that. And it seems to me as if Spirit of Excellence can actually be utilized to bridge the gap between the resources that may not be available in the church. So could you elaborate a little bit more on how your program, The Voice of Silence, could contribute to that?
Sure, I would love to elaborate on that. So, the Voice of Silence is I created a 6-week curriculum on um, educating the African American church. And it deals with the history of violence against women, trauma, a theological perspective. It also deals with uh, cultural competency and the services that we receive, which is a major issue, culture competency, because a lot of the agencies that we may go to, they don't look like us in the agency. They don't understand our plight as Black women in the community that, we walk in the door with a heaviness on us. So how do we take all that? And then there's the trust issue. Like, how do we trust services that are the ones that have created so many issues for us, that have created the racial inequalities in the institutions that we depend on to provide us services. And then I always like to do a call to action. Like, don't receive all this wholesome information and not able to do anything with it. Like, the Voice of Silence is not just another workshop. Like, it's a tool and an action plan to move forward. Like, don't don't just send people here to say, I participated in the Voice of Silence. No, 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 no. We want you to put an action plan in place to help save our community. And we can do it. We can do it, and without spiritualizing. So just providing the church with the tools to move forward, to be able to give voice to violence. Like, how many women are sitting in pews Sunday after Sunday and not able to give voice to their pain?
Kudos to you. Okay.
Thank you.
So, with that being said, let's continue to talk about how domestic violence can be incorporated further into the church. But particularly, how do you think that domestic violence has furthered your own faith?
When the abuse was just to a point where I had felt as though God had placed me in a pit and no one was ever going to come and rescue me. And the scripture that I held on to that helped me to regain my strength was Second Timothy 1:7. And that scripture is, for God has not given us this spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. And that scripture, like, I really, that scripture just, I just gravitated to it and allowed it to just rest in my spirit. Because if God has not given me the spirit of fear, I had to ask myself, dear, what has God given me? Power, love. And what does love look like? Learn to love myself. And if I couldn't love myself, I was not able to love my kids. So when I begin to do that, when I begin to strengthen and begin to love on myself for the Black woman, the Black queen that God has created me to be, that allowed me the strength to help other women to know that you are a queen. And always know, when you're in your queendom, that you should be the best queen and should not allow life circumstances to take you off your throne.
Let me sit up straight, adjust the crown, because yes, 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 yes.
Ooh,
I
mm.
love that. I love it. Audience, I hope that you are really paying attention to these words of wisdom because Reverend Dr. Carter is laying down some gems. Okay. So I think that that is a wonderful way to conclude our video, but I want to make sure that if there is any additional advice you would like to leave with our audience, what would you say to them?
Never be afraid to walk in your truth. Like, your truth is who you are, and your truth can help you get over hurdles. For example, I used to be afraid to say I'm from Newark, New Jersey. But now, when I walk in the room, I want you to know I am from Newark, New Jersey. I am a product of Newark, New Jersey. And this is what it looks like when you strive and work hard. It doesn't matter where you're from. It does not matter where you're from, but it's where you're going. And how are you going to get there?
I love that. Again, fighter spirit. And I absolutely appreciate the fact that your program itself is not just, like you said, something that you are here to participate in. You are looking for people to be action oriented. You are looking for there to be results. You are looking for them to go back and also feed it and pay it forward to the rest of the community. So, as we are closing out here, can you share with the audience how you can be reached?
Sure. The audience can reach me at on our Facebook page, SOE Leadership. Instagram page is SOE Leadership, and also my email is soeleadership@gmail.com. And you could also view the PSAs on my Facebook page, or you can view the PSAs, the Voice of Silence PSAs on my YouTube page. It's Selena D. Carter on YouTube.
So, let me extend again my extreme gratitude for having you with us today. It was a great pleasure in getting to know you throughout this entire interview process. And I am sure that our audience is going to not only be in touch, but I think that they are going to be taking away some wonderful steps so that they can also continue to promote healthy relationships.
Thank you for having me. This was a great pleasure to be able to share with someone, because we never know what people are going through, and what words can change the trajectory of their life. So yes, I really, really thank the Safe Sister Circle for having me. And it's just been a pleasure.
Thank you once again for joining the Safe Sister Circle for another Circle Chat session. In particular, with this one, I hope that you were able to take away some advice on how to be more culturally competent with your survivorship. It is always my pleasure to be able to speak with such inspiring women and share their experiences with all of you. So continue to donate, join us on all of our social media platforms, and until next time, continue to be safe and take care.